The Quiet Cage begins. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed, because once you enter this story, you won't believe how deep the darkness really goes. The night Anthony Casso was dragged out of his safe house in New Jersey, the air smelled of gasoline, rain, and something heavier, the kind of tension that follows a man who has spent years living at the edge of murder and empire. Red and blue lights pulsed across the cracked pavement as agents surrounded the single-story house, boots splashing through puddles. They expected a shootout, a desperate last stand, the fall of a mafia prince. What they got instead was silence. Inside, Casso sat at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood, breathing slow and steady. He didn't reach for the gun tucked under the chair leg. He didn't fight. He didn't even speak when the agents stormed in. He simply raised his hands, almost relieved, like a man who'd been running from more than law enforcement. Word spread fast across Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island. Whispers that Gaspipe Casso, the man linked to violent racketeering and extortion, the shadow behind decades of mafia brutality, had been taken alive. Rival crews celebrated. Old allies panicked. Investigators, prosecutors, and journalists all leaned forward at once. The arrest alone felt unreal. But the aftermath was even stranger. While Casso was processed in a federal building smeared with the grime of long nights and old cases, detectives combed through the safe house. They expected bodies, weapons, a ledger, maybe even a list of corrupt officials. Instead, they found something far more unsettling, a map of the United States, covered in thumbtacks, but each tack marked a location where someone had disappeared, not where someone had died. Dozens of pins. Dozens of names. Dozens of cold cases no one could explain. The agents stared at the grim constellations spread across the wall. None of it made sense. These weren't hits tied to any known families. Some were victims with no mafia ties at all. A missing parole officer from Nevada, a trucker who vanished near Pittsburgh, a private investigator from Florida. Why would a mafia underboss track them? Meanwhile, Casso spoke his first words to federal investigators. "You think you know my life? You think you know what I did? You don't." His tone was calm, controlled, like a man certain he had leverage. But when they asked about the map, he didn't deny it. He didn't explain it, either. He simply said, "Those aren't my crimes. Those are warnings." Warnings of what? Warnings for whom? The investigation moved quickly. The map was photographed. Names were fed into databases. Teams in multiple states reopened files thought long dead. But there was something else about the pins. Many of them were arranged in pairs. Wherever one person vanished, another disappeared within days. A pattern inside a pattern. Only someone obsessively tracking them would notice. The agents felt a chill crawling up the back of their necks as they realized what the pattern implied. Someone else had been operating beneath the surface of Casso's empire. Someone efficient, invisible, and widespread. But before they could confront Casso again, a second discovery hit even harder. Hidden underneath the floorboards of the safehouse basement was a steel lockbox. Inside were three things: a burner phone, a notebook with coded entries, and a photograph of a man whose name had appeared on none of the pins, a face investigators did not recognize. On the back of the photo, one handwritten line: "He's still out there." That was the moment investigators realized this wasn't just a mafia arrest. This wasn't just a criminal surrender. This was the edge of something far darker, something that reached beyond Casso's crimes, beyond organized crime entirely. And Casso, the feared underboss, the man whose violent influence once stretched across New York, was suddenly just the first piece on a much bigger board. But the real shock came only hours later, when agents brought the mysterious photograph to Casso and asked about the man in the picture. Casso leaned forward, eyes cold, voice low. "You arrested the wrong one," he said. "And if you don't find him, you'll be too late." The room went still. Because the man in the photograph wasn't a rival, wasn't a victim, and wasn't a ghost from Casso's past. He was someone Casso once trusted more than anyone. And the FBI had no idea he'd already vanished. The photograph lay under the fluorescent lights of the interrogation room, its edges worn, its surface slightly scratched as if it had been handled too many times. The man's face was sharp, expression unreadable, eyes steady like someone who'd learned to hide everything that mattered. Agents studied it. Analysts magnified it. Facial recognition systems ran through millions of records. No match. No history. No identity. It was as if the man had been carved out of nothing. Meanwhile, Anthony Casso sat shackled to the metal table, watching federal agents scramble. For the first time since his arrest, he looked almost amused. "You people are used to dealing with criminals who brag," he said. "Men who leave trails. Men who want to be remembered." He tapped the photo with a finger cuffed in steel. "He's not one of them." The agents leaned in. "Who is he?" Casso's answer chilled the room. "My ghost." But the truth was more complex, and far more dangerous. The investigation turns inside out. By sunrise, teams had been dispatched to every location pinned on Casso's map. Patterns emerged. At each disappearance, every paired vanishing, there were faint traces of the same calling card. A witness recalling a quiet man in a dark jacket. A burned-out surveillance camera. A vehicle registration that led nowhere. It wasn't sloppy. It wasn't rushed. It was intentional. Whoever the man in the photograph was, he operated in complete silence. And if the pins represented his movements, then he'd been traveling the country for years. Agents began to suspect the unimaginable. This man might not have been part of Casso's organization. This man might have been working outside it. Maybe even through it. The strange link. 3 days into the investigation, an agent reviewing Casso's coded notebook found similarities between the entries and old FBI files on a series of unconnected extortion attempts going back 15 years. But the threats in those cases didn't match Mafia style. They were quiet, precise. And each threat stopped abruptly, without arrest, without closure, without any sense of finality. Almost like someone had intervened. Someone who understood the underworld but wasn't bound by it. When agents confronted Casso with this information, he closed his eyes, breathing deeply before speaking. "You want the truth?" he said softly. "I didn't build my empire alone. Nobody does." He nodded toward the photograph. "That man, he handled problems I couldn't. People I couldn't reach. You call him a criminal. I call him my insurance." The agents froze. "Insurance? Against what?" Casso leaned back. "You don't survive decades in my business without shadows. He was mine. And I lost him. Lost him. Not fired him. Not betrayed him. But the wording mattered, more than the agents realized. A breakthrough from nowhere. Late that evening, an analyst stumbled across something buried in an old recording log, a voicemail left anonymously with New York police 7 years before. The voice was calm, measured, almost emotionless. "I handled the job. There won't be a body." The caller blocked the number. The audio quality was terrible. But when the analyst ran a spectral comparison, a tremor went through the room. The voice matched Casso. Perfectly. Except Casso had an airtight alibi that night. Confirmed, documented, and impossible to dispute. 2 voices. 1 identity. 2 men with the same vocal signature. Which meant one thing. The man in the photograph had been imitating Casso, or Casso had been imitating him. The lines between boss and shadow began to blur. Casso finally breaks. With evidence mounting, agents returned to Casso one more time. He looked exhausted now, the arrogance fading, replaced by something far rarer in men like him, fear. "You need to understand," he whispered. "He wasn't my hitman. He wasn't my enforcer. He was something else." "Then what was he?" an agent pressed. Casso stared at the floor. "A man who knew everything about me. Every deal. Every secret. Every betrayal. And the day he disappeared, I knew something was coming. I just didn't know when." He raised his eyes, voice trembling for the first time. "You think I surrendered because you caught me? I surrendered because he vanished. And when he vanishes, someone else goes next." The interrogation room fell silent. Even the recorder seemed to hold its breath. Because if Casso was telling the truth, then the disappearances weren't random, weren't chaotic, weren't tied to Mafia business at all. They were targeted, calculated, purposeful. And the man responsible was still moving, quietly, invisibly, through the country. The chapter ends with one final revelation. An agent burst into the room, eyes wide. "Sir," she gasped, holding a fresh report. "We found another pin location. One that wasn't on Casso's map." Casso didn't look surprised. "Where?" an agent asked. The woman swallowed. "Florence, Colorado. Near ADX. The prison where Casso was supposed to spend the rest of his life." Casso whispered, "He's already here." The air around ADX Florence was always cold, even in summer, a thin, metallic chill that clung to the concrete like a warning. The prison rose out of the Colorado desert like a monolith, a place built not for rehabilitation, but containment. Here, the most dangerous men in America existed in silence, isolation, and shadows. But on the morning the new pin location was discovered, something felt wrong. Guards reported small disturbances, a malfunctioning security camera, a perimeter sensor glitch, a guard tower radio that cut out for 30 seconds. All minor incidents. All easy to dismiss. Except not today. Not after learning the man in the photograph, the ghost, might be near. Inside the Federal Operations Center, agents gathered around a map, adrenaline firing through every conversation. The pin that marked the new location sat less than 3 miles from the prison's outer fence. There was no safe house, no building, no vehicle, just open land. "What was there?" an agent asked. A forest ranger, reviewing satellite scans, answered quietly. "Tracks bear footprints. As if someone walked there at night, and just kept walking." Casso listened from a small room nearby, wrists chained, shoulders tense. For years he'd kept the ghost close. Now the distance between them was closing again, and he didn't know why. "He doesn't make mistakes," Casso murmured. "If he wants you to find something, you'll find it. If he doesn't, you won't." But the next discovery wasn't left to chance. The note outside the prison. Just after noon, a guard spotted something taped to the outer maintenance door of ADX, a place only staff used. A single piece of paper, held by one strip of black tape. The message was handwritten, the ink slightly smudged, the letters sharp and controlled. "You caged the wrong man." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Agents rushed the note to analysis, but Casso already knew. His face drained of color. "He's not here to see me," he said. "He's here to replace me." Those words landed like a blow. Replace him? Replace him as what? Casso didn't look up. As the ghost. A secret from Casso's past. Once again, agents pressed him for answers. This time, Casso didn't fight. He wasn't just a partner, Casso confessed. He was a contingency. "Back when I started rising in the Mafia, my enemies were everywhere. I needed someone invisible, someone who could do what even my men couldn't." He took a breath. "I didn't recruit him. I didn't hire him. He found me." The room froze. Casso continued. "He knew things about me before I told him. He appeared when I needed him. Disappeared when the job was done. And one day, he wasn't working for me anymore. He was working for himself." An agent leaned forward. "What does he want now?" Casso whispered, "Control." The bridge. At 7:14 p.m., the first alarm sounded. A motion sensor on the east side of the prison tripped. Then another. Then a door alarm. Then a blackout in a section that never loses power. Guards scrambled. Radios crackled to life. Agents sprinted toward the surveillance room. On the screens, flickering, distorted, a figure moved. Slow, deliberate, never caught clearly by any camera. A silhouette slipping through blind spots with surgical precision. Every guard who tried to intercept him reached an empty hallway. Every locked door he passed through was never forced open. It was simply unlocked moments before. It was impossible. It was perfect. It was him. The ghost had entered ADX. And he was heading straight toward one place. Casso's solitary cell. The confrontation no one saw. Agents raced through the prison, boots echoing through the concrete labyrinth. But by the time they reached Casso's wing, the hallway was silent. 2 guards were unconscious on the floor, breathing but dazed. A third guard, trembling, pointed to Casso's door. "He's inside," the guard whispered. The cell was soundproof. Reinforced. No one could hear what happened inside. The door was unlocked. Agents stormed in. Casso sat on the edge of his cot, eyes wide, pupils dilated in terror. His wrists were still cuffed. He hadn't moved. But someone had left something on the floor in front of him. The photograph. The same photograph agents found in the safe house, except now there were 3 words written beneath the face. He knows everything. Casso's voice cracked. He told me the names. The people he's going after next. Who? An agent demanded. Casso swallowed, trembling. Everyone who believes I stopped being dangerous. The agent stared. What does that mean? Casso closed his eyes. It means the ghost isn't hunting me. He's hunting you. The final twist. As Casso was escorted away for emergency isolation, a tech analyst sprinted into the hallway, face pale. We recovered more camera footage, she said breathlessly. Something we missed. She held up a tablet showing a grainy freeze frame from a hallway camera. It wasn't the ghost. It was someone else. A guard. An ADX employee. Walking just seconds before the breach. Zooming in revealed something chilling. The guard's face wasn't quite right, too smooth around the edges, too stiff in expression, as if a mask or disguise covered the real identity beneath. The ghost hadn't infiltrated ADX alone. He had walked in wearing the uniform of the prison itself. And he was still inside. Anthony Casso, the feared Mafia underboss, once commanded an empire built on fear, violence, and power. But in the end, his greatest threat wasn't the FBI, rival families, or justice. It was the one man he trusted. A man who never existed in the system. A man who learned every secret Casso ever kept, then vanished into the world with all of them. And now, somewhere inside the most secure prison in America, that man was free. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for what's coming next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next case.